Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka the Man of Spoils, and this video we're breaking down the movie that kickstarted the DCEU. That is Man of Steel. In my opinion, it's the best Superman movie ever made, and I think that the film is massively underrated. Throughout this video, we're going to be going through the best Easter eggs in the film that I definitely think will make you appreciate the movie more. Obviously, there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the movie yet, then I highly recommend that you check out now. Please drop a thumbs up if you enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for content like this every day. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Man of Steel. Okay, so the movie opens with the Warner Brothers and DC logos in the form of Kryptonian metal. Not only does this play into the idea of Krypton's aesthetic and style, but it also subtly lets us know their biggest downfall. Throughout this introduction, we learn that the people of the planet mine too much, and this eventually caused it to implode. The metal can be seen laced throughout all of their technology, from their armour to their ships, holograms, and communication devices. Clearly, they became so reliant on this metal that they completely harvested the planet's core of the resource, and this eventually led to the death of their world. Though it's never said in the movie, just looking at the way that things are designed, it's clearly been chosen as a reason for why Krypton fell apart, and shows just how much the creative team were thinking into this aesthetic. This is mirrored in the name of the film itself and how it ties into Superman. Originally, Krypton was thought of as an ice planet, however Snyder and co thought long and hard about why the character would be known as the Man of Steel and how this would tie into his origin. Thus they coupled together the character's long established nickname, his home, and how the planet ended up destroying itself. So Man of Steel symbolically ties to metal, which ties back to Krypton and how the planet was destroyed. So yeah, lots of things going on in the subtext of the film, and after the opening we witness the birth of Kal-El. Accompanying the score by Hans Zimmer, the first real sound that we hear is Kal-El's heartbeat, and symbolically this shows that Superman is the heart of the DC universe. His birth also mirrors his death in many ways, and the positioning of the shot in this scene was purposely chosen by Snyder to show the beginning and end of his life. Though he was resurrected in Justice League, this is an astounding use of cinematography and is definitely a credit to just how good Snyder is able to visualize things. Jor-El visits the council and his pleas fall on deaf ears. The way this scene is shot also echoes Lara's death and is purposely repeated to show that the downfall of Krypton lies solely with the politicians. Another notable aspect is that she's killed by fire. In Batman v Superman, Lex ponders what to do with the witch, and then he suggests death by fire. Had Martha been killed in the movie, she would have been burned alive, showing the mirroring of his two mothers. Zod arrives with his forces, and you may notice that one of them is a giant compared to the rest. This is actually a character called Namek. He is this size because the character actually fused his biology with the Rondor beast that we see in the opening of the movie in order to give himself larger muscles and physical prowess. Jor-El is escorted away by Zod's forces, but he manages to gain the upper hand with help from Helix. Helix is actually a reference to the robotic butler that Jor-El had in the comics, and it's a nice little nod to the source material. Jor-El goes and gets the codex, and in order to do this he has to dive into water and swim for it. This is paralleled in Batman v Superman when a diver does the same thing in order to grab the massive kryptonite rock. Upon escaping, we see Jor-El flying through the sky on a dragon-like beast. During this, in the skyline, you can spot a moon that's been torn apart. In his watch-along, Snyder revealed that this was caused by an ancient version of Doomsday. This is why when Lex goes to resurrect Zod in BVS, it comes with a warning, as Doomsday has the ability to completely destroy worlds should he become powerful enough. Clark was able to kill him, but it could have been much worse had he not sacrificed himself. Speaking of Doomsday, the ensuing fight that Jor-El has against Zod also mirrors the one that Clark has with Doomsday in several ways. The way things are shot, as well as the impaling, all line up perfectly, and yeah, you know what, give Snyder his roses. Jor-El is able to go hand to hand with Zod quite easily, and though he was a scientist, he is clearly a well-equipped fighter. We learn in the movie that at birth, Kryptonians are told that they have to fit a certain element of society, and they must do this without question. The fact that Jor-El can fight shows that he likely disobeyed the roles set out for him by the Council of Krypton and decided to go beyond his predetermined path. Zod's face is cut during the scene, and this scar can also be seen on Doomsday's face in the following film, showing that the two are one and the same. The codec is placed into Kal-El, and it contains all of the information for life on Krypton. In Snyder's original 5-plan film for the DCEU, this was going to be taken by Darkseid and then turned into the anti-life equation, which would allow him to create the nightmare version of Earth that we see in Bruce's vision. Clark lands on Earth, and we jump forward several decades to see him rescuing people trapped on an oil rig. Cavill was asked to shave his chest for the scene, however he cited the death of Superman as a reason not to, as he's sporting hairy pecs under the suit. Clark lands in the water, and we cut back and forth between his memories. As a child, we see his senses overwhelm him, and he flees to a cupboard to block everything out. His mother arrives and tells him to listen to her voice, and in the series, he always has an ear on her and Lois. This is how he's able to rescue Lois, as she's dropped off a skyscraper in BVS. In the live stream, Snyder did say that he'd heard of a theory that Aquaman rescued him at this point, however, he did not confirm it. He said that it would be a cool idea though, so draw your own conclusions from that, and if you want Aquaman to rescue him, then go with that by all means. Now Clark makes his way to land and sees a school bus, which reminds him of the time he saved his class. One of the students is Pete Ross, who would actually become a friend of Clark in the comics, and Lana Lang, who was of course his first love. There's also a nod to Chloe Sullivan in the movie at one point, with a sign in the background of a scene, but yeah, probably not best to mention her for a long time because, damn. Amy Adams also appeared in Smallville too, so there are a lot of little tiebacks to the show. It's here that we're introduced to Jonathan Kent, and I love how both Clark's fathers are played by people who've also played Robin Hood. Not sure if that's an Easter egg, but here it is in the list. Clark eventually makes his way to a military base after making a guy's truck look like a game of Kaplunk, and here he meets Lois. Clark helps her with her bags, and she says be careful, they're heavy, but we can clearly see him lifting them with ease. He journeys to the ship, and on there sees a pod with its lid open, showing that someone from it climbed out. Snyder said that this was supposed to be a nod to Supergirl, who is already meant to be on Earth and could end up appearing in a DC film very soon. After powering up the ship, Clark is introduced to a hologram of his father, who recounts the history of Krypton. In the scene, we can also see Clark's vessel travelling to Earth. Behind it is a star symbol, and this is a reference to the Christopher Reeve movie in which the ship looked very similar. Clark is given his suit, and he gets the blue and red one over the black that is typical of his house. In the watch-along, Snyder referred to this as the suit of optimism, and this represents a more hopeful version of his family. Clark takes his first flight, and I absolutely love this scene as it really feels like he's just having a blast with it. We learn about the death of Jonathan, and Lois also discovers who he is. Clark returns home, and we can see a LexCorp van dropping him off. I'm not sure if I'm reaching here, but in Batman v Superman, we learn that Lex is well aware of who Superman really is. It's also clear that he's been keeping tabs on other metahumans due to the files on his computer, so he may have had someone in his company following Clark in order to keep tabs on him. Again, that might be a reach, but it's just a fan theory I've come up with in my head to show how Lex knows where Clark lives and who he is. Zod puts out a call for the Kryptonian, and this is intercepted by the army, namely General Swanwick. In the Snyder Cut, Swanwick is going to be Martian Manhunter, and it's rumoured that additional scenes are being filmed with this reveal. This message from Zod is clearly worrying for Clark, and he travels to a church seeking advice. The priest actually returns in Batman v Superman as the one that carries out Clark's funeral, and it's a nice little return for the character to be on both sides of his sacrifices. Jesus can also be seen behind Clark as he questions whether he should give up his life for humanity. The stained glass imagery is also meant to echo this, as Jesus in this scene does the same thing to God which this image portrays. There's more Jesus imagery in the film, such as Clark throwing his arms out when he exits Zod's ship, which looks very similar to a crucifixion pose. Jesus was crucified at 33, which we learn is the age that Clark is in the film. Jesus was also stabbed with a spear, which would later be called the Spear of Destiny. So we have this notion of spears being used to damage gods. In Batman v Superman, Batman uses a spear with kryptonite on it because Snyder said that he would view this as a weapon worthy of taking down a god. Supes goes to the military, and this shot echoes the media attention in Batman v Superman. This shows that guns aren't the only weapons we have, and that it is possible to take people down in other ways. BVS centers around Lex defaming Supes, and his court appearance too mirrors him being taken in by the military, showing the correlation between these two moments. Clark hands himself over to the Kryptonians, and though they never say kneel before Zod, the effects he feels on the ship force him to do it. It's here that he experiences visions of Zod's plan, and at one point he sinks into a pit of skulls. This is referenced once more in the Day of the Dead scene in Batman v Superman. In this stream, Snyder also addressed this moment and said that the skulls symbolise Superman's worst fear is not his own death, but rather the death of all those around him. We also see a destroyed moon, perhaps referencing the one from the beginning. Lois manages to disable the atmosphere on the ship through bringing a sort of computer virus aboard it in the form of Jor-El. We actually find out that he designed the ship, so clearly the guy was a great scientist that helped to build vessels. This also explains how he was able to create such a good ship to send his son off with. Clark battles the Kryptonian forces in Smallville, and we see several notable locations. Firstly, we see a sign that shows the name of the local team, that is the Smallville Spartans, which is a reference to Snyder's prior film 300. The locals also hide in the post office, which is called Ezra's Mail Depot. Ezra Small actually founded Smallville, so this is a nod to the town's creator. We also see the local Sears destroyed in the battle, and in the film we learn that Martha works there. However, in BVS she works in a diner and likely had to change her job because it was destroyed during the fight. The Kryptonians discover that Kal-El has the codex within him, and Snyder did hint that this opens things up for the future. He cited that it's possible for Clark to potentially restart the Kryptonian race if DC ever want to. He also teased that Faora could come back and try and extract this. I actually hope they do a Supergirl movie that she's the villain in, because yeah, one of the best characters in this movie, and I'd love to see the two go head to head. They launched the World Engine, which impacts the Indian Ocean, and this location would of course return for Batman v Superman. One also goes to Metropolis, where the terraforming commences. In the ocean, Clark stops the one on his side, and he's badly wounded. He reaches out to the sun, and this actually recharges him. This is an element from the comics, as Superman draws his power from the sun. However, it was also brought up in Batman v Superman after the nuke attack. Now I just want to give a huge shout out to Daniel Edits, who's placed the Metropolis scene side by side with the one from Batman v Superman. It shows just how much effort the creative team really put into making sure things lined up, as side by side everything is absolutely perfect. I really can't stress enough how too well these scenes accompany one another, and it's incredible seeing the battle from the perspective of Clark and then Bruce in the sequel. You can honestly see why Bruce would become so terrified of Superman to the point that he would try and destroy him, and though Man of Steel often gets criticised for the destruction in the scene, I feel like it was necessary to set up the following film. Snyder actually addressed this controversy in his watch-along and said that this was an invasion movie and that we needed to see the real-life consequences of terraforming and just how powerful the Kryptonians really were. This destruction led into why Clark had to snap his neck, which I'll get into in just a bit. Now at one point they go through a building, and for a split second you can see a poster that says "Keep calm and call Batman." This is actually referenced in the following movie, as we see things from the point of view of Jack. We learn Jack is a Wayne employee that keeps calm in the destruction and calls Bruce, or rather Batman, so he did keep calm and called Batman. There's also a LexCorp truck which Zod kicks at Clark, and for a split second we can see the smiley face symbol from Watchmen. Snyder of course directed Watchmen, so this is another callback to his work. At one point they also go to a construction site, and we can see a sign that says 106 days without an accident. This changes to 0 days without an accident after Clark is smashed into it. There's a building that has a Blaze Comics sign on it, which is a fictional comic book company in the DC universe. We also see Utopia Casinos, which is owned by Tony Gallo, who discovered Superman's weakness was kryptonite. The building doesn't get destroyed, which is also a nice nod to the character. There's also a Wayne Enterprise satellite that I'm sure you noticed, but hey, we like to be thorough. The battle ends with Superman snapping Zod's neck, and though Snyder has received a lot of criticism over this, in the live stream he said that though we can debate over whether he would do this or not, symbolically it shows that Clark has a choice to either be with his own people or humanity, but he chooses us and the family of Earth rather than his own. Now I don't know if this is for definite, but I think this train station might also be where Bruce ends up taking Clark in BVS. Also, there's a little Riddler symbol there in BVS which I forgot to point out on my last breakdown. Now, the movie ends with Jonathan seeing a vision of Clark as the man he would become, and Clark joins the Daily Planet as a reporter. Lois says welcome to the planet because she's saying welcome to the planet. Look, you're not stupid, you got it, I love you. Now that pretty much ends the movie, and sets up things to come, leading into a DCEU that I personally love. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video, and if there's anything we missed. Comment below and let us know, and if you enjoyed this video then please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our breakdown of Spider-Man Homecoming, which is going to be linked at the end. If you want to support the channel from as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you, you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at Heavy Spoilers or click the Discord link in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with the channel, so hopefully we see you over there very soon.